What's going on, guys? I'm Lakota from Meyer Mediums, and this is vlog number 15. I decided to try not sitting down for this video because my back is terrible and sitting for too long makes me wish that I were dead. So I figured, why not try doing this in the traditional standing fashion. I'm not gonna lie, I had a hard time trying to figure out what I was going to talk about in this video because the past 7 days have been pretty boring. Lucky for me, I got a message out of the blue from my good friend Dave letting me know that a ship carrying 6,000 cows capsized and sank off the shores of Japan due to a typhoon. Dave also sent me a heartfelt voice message, and after I got done reading the article, I listened to that, and I wanted to share that with you now.
Like, I would have given anything to have, like, an underwater microphone there to record those 6,000 cattle drowning. Like, that's a once-in-a-lifetime sound recording opportunity. Like, you can't make something like that happen. Like, you had to be there.
And that got me thinking. One of the biggest niches on YouTube are videos of just sounds to put you to sleep. Rainstorms, creaky boats in a rainstorm, front porches in a rainstorm, busy streets in a rainstorm, so on and so forth. And I started wondering, is it time to take my channel in a new direction? I took a shot at it, and after a few failed attempts, I decided I'm not very good at this genre of video. Again, I was at a loss for what kind of content I would be providing you with this week. Thank God for Facebook! I had a good old FB memory pop up of some Halloween art that I did about a year ago, and it reminded me that it's practically fall and it's time to start pumping out the spooky stuff. So I sat down and cranked out my first Halloween painting of 2020. And I could always just play some haunting music over the time-lapse video of me painting this particular picture, but how does that grow our relationship? It doesn't. So I decided to also give you my top 10 favorite horror movies to get you in the mood for the Halloween season. Let's get started. Fun fact, the older I get, the less I find myself caring about the horror genre, especially newer horror films. I tend to stay away from them. I think part of it is just the fact that I find them to be more depressing than scary or even entertaining. I tend to steer more towards camp and schlock when it comes to horror films, and I've always loved over-the-top practical effects and creative handmade monsters. Tom Savini and Greg Nicotero are two of my heroes. Another one of my heroes is Rob Bottin. And when it comes to monsters, one of the greatest movie creatures ever created was worked on by Rob Bottin, and that is the creature in The Thing. John Carpenter's 1982 classic is just that, a classic. I think I was 14 or 15 when I saw this one. The part that always sticks out in my mind is the scene with the defibrillators, when the guy on the table's chest cavity opens up as a mouth and bites off Dr. Copper's arms. Another fun fact, the movie could have ended right at the beginning had the expedition members only been able to understand Norwegian. He literally screamed at them, the guy from the helicopter that was towards the beginning of the movie, the crazy Norwegian guy. He literally screamed at them, "Get the hell away from that thing. That's not a dog. It's some sort of thing. It's imitating a dog. It isn't real. Get away, you idiots." Another one of my favorite germ-like parasitic alien movies is The Blob 1988, directed by Chuck Russell, who also directed another one of my favorite cheesy horror flicks on this list. Frank Darabont worked on the film as well as a writer. The 1988 version of The Blob was actually terrifying. I remember seeing it on IFC or Showtime when I was a kid. I turned it on for the simple fact that nothing else was on at the time, and I honestly thought that I would be bored by a film about a gelatinous pink substance slurming its way around town, engulfing its residents. But from the minute I saw Paul, the guy they set you up to believe is going to be the hero of the film, being melted right in front of his girlfriend, I knew this wasn't going to be anything like the 1958 version I had seen on Turner Classic Movies. I was also young when I saw this one, and there was one scene in the film that actually got me. The scene in the sewers where the kid bites the dust. Up to that point, I always thought kids were safe in horror films, or would at least, or at most, die off screen, but not in this movie. Dude comes up from the water looking like bubblegum stuck to the bottom of someone's shoe. And speaking of dead kids, another classic that will never get old is Pet Sematary. Now, I'm a Stephen King freak, and I'm not usually one to get starstruck, but if there is one person on this planet that I would like to sit down and talk with, it would be Stephen King. But this list isn't about my love of the written word, it's about movies, so I won't go on singing the praises of King in this video. But this movie isn't just one of my top 10 favorite horror films, it's one of my top favorite films of all time. Not only is it one of the closest adaptations to a King book ever made, but they couldn't have casted anyone better than Fred Gwynne to play Judd Crandall. I mean, he's almost exactly what I imagined when reading the book. Also, I'm not scared by many movie monsters as an adult. I think there's really only two that haunted my dreams, but one of those monsters is Zelda. When I see Andrew, I don't remember his name, Andrew, it sounds like Hoobastank. Habatsik? When I see that guy, Andrew, scuttle across the floor towards the camera all done up as Rachel Creed's sinister spinal meningitis twisted sister, my skin crawls every single time. It never gets easier. But when it comes to body horror, you can't get any better than David Cronenberg. Cronenberg has put out some of the gnarliest, face-melting, skin-schluffing, appendage-stretching transformation scenes the world has ever seen. And a great example is his 1986 version of The Fly. I remember watching this movie with my mom. I have no idea how I got away with this because I was in the 3rd grade and my parents were hesitant to let us watch anything with a rating over PG anyway. I expected the movie to get turned off at any moment, but it never did. Turns out my mom was just as enthralled by the film, and with good reason. Jeff Goldblum killed it in his role as Seth Brundle. To be fair, he kills it in just about any role, but he shined in this one particularly. He shined. Shone? Is it? But he shone in the... He did good. Moving on. One scene in particular that got a pretty severe reaction from both my mom and I was when Seth purges digestive juices all over some dude's foot, and we get to watch his ankle turn into tapioca pudding. And on the topic of melted skin, the other film on my list that was directed by Chuck Russell is 1983's Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. Why this one and not the original? Other than the fact that this is the film that introduced me to the franchise, it's because it's utterly ridiculous. The whole premise of the movie is so insane that I can't help but love it. A group of psych ward kids team up and take on the dream demon terrorizing the town of Springwood, Ohio with their dream powers. What's not to love? I'm a big fan of reality-altering baddies like Pennywise and the Djinn from Wishmaster. The ways that reality gets altered in this film just tickles me to my core. Marionette suicide, the Freddy worm, Freddy television, the ridiculous skeleton Freddy fight scene at the end. The movie's a masterpiece of comedic delights. I love this movie. Now, going back to the science fiction genre, a film that eluded me until I was an adult, and probably for the best, is Event Horizon. Growing up, I always saw TV bumpers on the Sci-Fi Channel for this movie. I would make plans to watch it, and when it would air, something would always come up and I would miss it. So finally, when I was in college, I saw it at a movie store and rented it. And it never occurred to me how terrifying the idea of opening a portal to hell in space was until I watched this movie. But the mixture of isolation and disturbing visions the crew would have was unnerving. The atmosphere of the set was creepy all the way around, with frozen viscera of the last crew being strewn out across some of the walls, plus the video log that the cast stumbles upon from the last crew was, well, it was something. Sam Neill was creepy beyond words and delivers one of the scariest lines I've ever heard in a movie to this day. Where we're going, we don't need eyes to see. I don't want to go where they're going. That sounds awful. And while Event Horizon involves space and no aliens, my other favorite science fiction horror film involves aliens but hardly any space. Peter Jackson's Bad Taste came out in 1987. A group of mercenaries are dispatched by the Astro Investigation and Defense Service to investigate the disappearance of the citizens of a small town who are being taken as food for an intergalactic food chain. If you're a fan of the Lord of the Rings franchise, then you have this film to thank. It was the movie that launched Mr. Jackson's career. It's not so much a horror movie as it is a gory comedy, and I do mean gory. 80% of this film is just buckets of blood and entrails being splashed across the screen, but it's fun. Also, the aliens apparently eat very much in the same way as Brundlefly. One of the aliens, played by Peter Jackson himself, seemingly cooks the alien's food in his stomach and is then held upside down to serve up human-flavored oatmeal for all of the aliens to slurp up. On the subject of eating humans for dinner, I'm a huge fan of old-school zombie films. I think the genre has been played out and unfortunately will probably never go away, even for a little bit. And we have George Romero to thank for that. And although all three of the movies from the first trilogy are wonderful, the one that has always been my favorite is Day of the Dead. I can't exactly pinpoint why that is my favorite, but it is. I love everything about it. The music, Bub, the claustrophobic feeling of the film, and let's be honest, there are few character deaths in a film more satisfying than Captain Rhodes. Also, his exiting line, "Choke on him," while the undead unwrap him like a 4-year-old opening a Christmas present, are pretty solid last words. Moving on to a more lighthearted film about ghosts instead of zombies. This movie isn't necessarily a horror film. By today's standards, it may even be looked at as a kid's film. As a matter of fact, I was a kid myself the first time I saw it. It isn't just that I enjoy the movie, but it played a part in shaping my taste in art and music. Tim Burton released Beetlejuice in 1988, a good year, because that is the year that I was born. And in my opinion, it's his best film. The aesthetic of the film mixed with Danny Elfman's musical score made for an absolutely beautiful experience. Beetlejuice is another one of those reality-altering creatures that I love, and the creature designs of all the ghosts are some of the most original designs I've ever seen. Barbara's stretched-out mouth design probably being my favorite. What happened to Tim Burton, man? Like, I understand wanting to branch out to new things, but I really feel like he lost touch with himself somewhere along the line. I don't think we're ever going to get a Burton film that matches his 80s and 90s feel. Like, once he discovered CGI, he just ran with it, and it's depressing. All right, last but absolutely not least, my favorite horror movie of all time. A flawless gem that I don't think I'll ever get tired of. And if you want to know what shaped my taste in horror films and the reason the first firearm I ever purchased was a double-barrel shotgun, the answer is Evil Dead 2. I was 11 when I saw this movie, and I actually saw the trilogy. The trilogy's great, and I saw it backwards. I actually started with Army of Darkness. I saw it on TV, and I thought it was a standalone film because I missed the beginning. Like, I missed the explanation. So I was telling my friends, I was like, dude, there's this movie about a guy who's got a chainsaw for a hand and a shotgun, and he's like fighting medieval monsters, and it's one of the greatest things I've ever seen. And most of my friends had never seen this. And a guy ended up telling me, he's like, yeah, this is the last movie of a trilogy. And I was like, what? And I ended up renting it with my best friend, and we watched that one. I just remember watching, I was like halfway through, I was like, this is it. I don't know what it is, but this movie is it. It's perfect. It turned me on to cult classic movies. Like, I started discovering other cult classic films because of Evil Dead 2. I remember specifically whenever he finally got into let's do this mode, And he went out to the shed and made the chainsaw to put on his hand and then sawed off the barrel of his shotgun with the chainsaw and said, "Groovy." I was like, dude, this is the coolest guy that has ever been on a TV screen. I could go on about Evil Dead 2 all day, and it's best that I end this here so that the time-lapse painting goes by faster. And I think that's it. That is my top 10 favorite horror movies, and I will probably watch most of those before Halloween. All right, well, that's going to do it for me this week, guys. I hope that you enjoyed the video and that you enjoy the artwork. I wanted to let you know that I'm planning on doing a bunch of Halloween-themed art this year, all from September, all the way through September to October 31st. So just get ready for that. I will try to do time-lapse videos of a lot of them, not all of them. And I've never been one to get into fan art, but I'm kind of wanting to, I'm going to try it this year. I'm going to try it. I figured why not start by doing paintings based off of these 10 movies that I just shared with you. And also, let me know in the comments what some of your favorite horror movies are. I would love to hear it, and I might even do a painting of one of those as well. I appreciate you. You guys take care of yourselves.